We're live now, Councillor Mrs. Scott.
Right. Good evening, everybody. And I think for the benefit of the live streaming, can we all introduce ourselves? Lynn, would you like to take the roll call, please?
Yes, I will, Councillor Mrs. Scott. The first Councillor Clark.
Hi, I'm here.
Brilliant, and he's Children and Young People portfolio. Councillor Dalston.
Yes, I'm here.
And Councillor Dalston has Deputy Leader in Stronger Communities portfolio. Councillor Johnson, Resources.
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Councillor Keir, Local Services.
Hi, I'm here.
Brilliant. Councillor Marshall, Economy portfolio.
I'm here, Lynn.
Councillor Nicholson, Health and Housing.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Mrs. Scott, Leader of the Council.
Yes, I'm here, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a number of other members that are not in Cabinet, but they're invited members. Councillor Curry, Leader of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Hello.
Hi. Councillor Harker, Leader of the Opposition and Labour Group.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi. Councillor Snedker, Leader of the Green Group.
Yes, Lynn, I'm here.
Thank you. And Councillor Tate, Leader of the Darlington Independents.
Thanks, Lynn. I'm also here.
Thank
And
you.
you missed Councillor Mills, Lynn.
Oh, I did. Sorry about that, Councillor. Yeah, Councillor Mills, Adults Portfolio.
No problem. I'm here, Lynn.
Thank you very much. Item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Does anybody have a declaration of interest? If you could raise your hand. No, I can't see any hands. Item 3, to hear relevant representations from members and the general public on items on the Cabinet agenda. And we've got 3 representations. We have Councillor Wallace, who is wanting to ask a question on 7C. Councillor Boddy, who sent in a written question on the same item, and Michael and Angela Green, who've also sent in questions on the same item. We'll deal with those when we get to 7C, and Councillor Keir will actually read out the questions of those that were sent in as a written. Item 4, to approve the minutes of the meeting of Cabinet on the 10th of November. Can somebody move that they are correct record?
I move them.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. And item 5, matters referred to Cabinet. There are no matters referred back to Cabinet. Issues, item 6, issues rising from Scrutiny Committee. There are no issues arising from Scrutiny Committee. So we'll go into the key decisions. Item 7A, school term dates. Councillor Clark.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'd like to submit this report reference school term dates 2022-2023 as recommended in paragraph 3 and for reasons given in paragraph 4. Thank you.
Councillor Clark, there's some interference on your, I don't know whether it's your headphone.
Can you hear me?
That's, yeah, there's still a little bit, but yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Can we have... Can we have a seconder for Councillor Clark's? Can we have a seconder, please?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any questions to Councillor Clark on his report? No, I can't. No questions, Councillor Clark. So yes, we will move on. Item 7B, town centre car parking. Councillor Keir. Councillor Keir, you're on mute.
Thank you, Chair. Town centre car parking, I would like to propose this report. It provides an update in the town centre car parking charges and seeks approval to continue a range of car parking offers for a further 2 years, supported by funding from the Tees Valley Combined Authority, as per the recommendations in paragraph 6 for the reasons in paragraph 7.
Can I have a seconder for that, please?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Dalston. Any questions to Councillor Keir on his report? I've got Councillor Snedker and Councillor Harker. Councillor Snedker, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you, Chair. First point is just I've raised it before, and I think what bears raising again is about the carbon impact, where it says there may be an impact. I think we should just be honest and say that by encouraging more driving, then there will be a carbon impact. So I'd just like that page 22 tweaking to be a little bit clearer to the public on that one. And the second one is more of an observation. I'm sure we're all aware of people who haven't understood the requirement to display a ticket when they're taking advantage of this parking subsidy. They need to take a ticket even if they're going to be gone within half an hour, an hour. And so I know there's been good communications on that already, but I think we're going to have to be ready to keep that communications going and understand that many members of the public still haven't understood they need to get a ticket even though they're not paying for parking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Harker.
Thank you, Chair. Similarly to comments I made earlier in the year when you had the reports in September, I think it was, I think there's very little evidence that shows that the cost of parking has any significant long-term impact on where people choose to shop. And indeed, the report to Cabinet earlier in the year, your own report, showed that a previous scheme had in fact had very little impact in terms of increasing the number of cars coming into the town centre and hence the number of shoppers shopping in the town centre. The second point I'd make is if this is really about helping town centres, why is it not part of a wider paper looking at subsidising all forms of transport? And in addition to what Councillor Snegder has just said, at a time when the council's telling the public we need to be taking action vis-a-vis climate change, this particular policy is just making a mockery of that. It does nothing to increase the use of more sustainable transport. I'm sure there's far more cost-effective ways that we could spend across the Tees Valley £10 million in supporting our town centres, other than attempting to increase car use, which, as I said, I suspect won't have that impact. And, you know, looking at this very cynically, I suspect this is no more about supporting town centres. It's really about supporting Ben's election campaign in May next year. Thank you, Chair.
Just before Councillor Keir comes back to answer you, Councillor Harker, on behalf of the Tees Valley Scrutiny, I'm the lead on transport, and there is actually a scheme being discussed to do exactly what you're saying about bringing in support for other forms of transport, particularly buses, and that's something that's in the forward plan for transport. So we will deal with that. So that's a totally separate issue. Councillor Keir, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Snedker, you're right about the carbon impact. We don't know. We don't know how people, if we weren't getting car parking in the town centre, where they would go, what they would do. They'd probably go to the most convenient places. And of course, there are out of town places they could go with their car. So the overall impact and effect of carbon, we don't really know. The intent of this is to try and support our town centre and begin as many people in there. And I'm quite sure the both yourself and Councillor Harker, who is admitted he's quite cynical about this and putting their view forward, would admit that the biggest issue with the buses just now is capacity rather than anything else, in respect to the number of buses that are going in there because of COVID and the amount of people that can go on the buses. So it's a joint thing. We are working with the bus companies to try and maximise the potential there. We are looking at doing various things with we invest in cycle routes, etc., and those types of things. And I think this particular one is specific to cars, and you're right. It will hopefully bring in more cars into the town centre so that people can support the town centre, because they may have other options to go to if the car parking wasn't free. The bus transport, yeah, I think we're looking at what we can do there is to maximise that as much as possible. It's obviously the effects of COVID are having a tremendous effect on the actual buses themselves, how many passengers they can take, and obviously supporting the buses and as per the government, you know, giving them financial support. We intend to continue that to try and maximise the bus transport as much as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Are there any other questions? No, in that case, can we agree? Can we have your agreement, Cabinet members, please? Thank you. Item 7C, Tree and Woodland Strategy, Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to propose the Tree and Woodland Strategy as presented to Cabinet. The outcomes of we have included the outcomes of the consultation document that was carried out for the Tree and Woodland Strategy, and I would like to propose we accept that based on the recommendations put forward by the officers for the reasons in section 5 for the reasons put forward in section 6.
Can we have a seconder for that, please?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Wallace, would you like to put your question, and then I'll get Councillor Kerr to read out the questions of the other two that were submitted by email. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Scott. Firstly, it's deeply disappointing that the Cabinet hasn't taken the advice of scrutiny and included some consideration of people's quality of life when deciding work to be undertaken on trees. There was, I think, unanimity across the parties on scrutiny on this point, because we all know as ward councillors just how profoundly the wrong tree in the wrong place can affect people's lives. And it's people, not trees, that we're here to serve. By rejecting this clause, Cabinet has missed an opportunity. There's little surprise, however, that this and other suggestions were rejected because, as the report says itself in paragraph 16b(1), it's not believed this strategy is weaker than the previous one, as there is very little difference between the two. The last Tree and Woodland Strategy was taken through Cabinet on the 13th of September 2011 by me. I've compared that strategy and this one. They're almost identical twins. So 3 of the 5 paragraphs in the foreword, apparently written by Councillor Kerr, are lifted directly from my foreword in 2011. The introductions are identical, save for the removal of a single paragraph. In the section entitled "What Residents Have Told Us," you might imagine that this relates to learning from the 2020 consultation, except it is again lifted word for word from the 2011 strategy, and so it goes on. This strategy is a cut and paste job. It does no credit, frankly, to Councillor Kerr, and it's an insult to the 145 people and organisations who responded to the consultation in good faith, thinking that their voices would be heard when Cabinet already believed that the existing 10-year-old strategy was just fine. Why, Councillor Kerr, should anyone take part in a Darlington Council consultation when they're treated like this? Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Kerr, would you like to respond?
Well, I'm not surprised at the reaction from the former owner of this policy. Why would you change something if it is fair and balanced? And after the consultation document has gone out and has been reviewed by the officers and by myself, there have been some changes. If you look at paragraph 30 there, you'll see that there are some issues there. But essentially, when you look at the consultation, other than do you think we have the correct policy, most of the respondents were in favour of what was happening with the document, and I think that's pretty much in line with other authorities throughout the UK, because this document doesn't really vary that much from what the intent is from other authorities as well, in both its design and also in its focus. I think the quality of life part that Councillor Wallace relates to, if we look at the very first question and the document, which is the overall, do you think we are doing that? Do you agree that the council policy is okay? We had a split vote there between those who are for it and those that are against it. And quite frankly, I'm quite sure Councillor Wallace, if he's read all of the respondents, he'll find that those who are in support of trees are saying we don't go far enough, and those who are against are those who have a more, we need to do more for humankind, would see that they are quite polar and vociferous in their views. For me, when we look at that and trying to look at how we reconcile those, I think in balance, I think the current situation is right, and we've got to take a balanced view for the whole of the Darlington people. There are 145 respondents here, and if you read most of the responses, you're either for or against trees. People who say we don't do enough are half of the respondents, who are saying that we don't agree, and the other half are those who are more for humankind. So for me, it's a balanced. I think it sits there. It is balanced. You can criticise many of the documents that are in the council. I'm quite sure when Councillor Wallace was redoing things and writing things and bringing things up, they follow through. So I'll take his criticism, but I think it's fairly standard practice when we do these things, and when you look at various documents, especially weighted documents, where these documents are in the council, and we did go to consultation and you listen, but there isn't anything that's going to drive you to go drastically different, then why would you change those documents? So I think in retrospect, I could have went in and changed words in there and made it different just to achieve the same aims, which would be a total waste of officers' time and my time. So I think I'll take with a pinch of salt what Councillor Wallace is saying about the actual wording of the documents, and I think this is more about the intent of where we're going in the next 10 years. It's a very negative view that he's taken. There is nothing about the good things that we're doing in there. For example, we have a target of 10,000. We have an ambition of going and doubling that. We're going to be looking at getting a group together to try and oversee that, to make it work well, make sure that we have got the right trees in the right places, etc. Try and get some order into the various different groups that are in there. So I think his very negative view is fairly typically what we've seen for the Labour councillors in the last couple of years, whereby it doesn't matter what we do, we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. We've even taken this particular document, which was crafted by the Labour administration and the officers prior, and we've taken it, we've massaged a couple of things, and we're looking at what we can do better in there from a actuality. So rather than criticising, I would have hoped that we'd have had some positive comments for Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Wallace, in line with the way that the previous administration ran Cabinet, you've had the answer to your question. We were never allowed to come back with a supplementary question, so I'm operating in the same way that you did when you were in control. Councillor Kerr, would you like to read the other two questions that you've got?
I will. Just give me a second, please. This is item C, tree strategy and unwanted Christmas trees, and this is from Councillor Body. I understand that the Cabinet will meet to discuss their local tree strategy and express intention of doubling the target for planting trees from 10,000 to 20,000 new trees at item 7C. In January 2021, there are likely to be Christmas tree collection, ? A significant number of trees purchased in the Darlington area will be sold to residents this Christmas, either with roots attached or more likely in a pot with a root ball in the soil. The intention, of course, is to plant these trees in the new year. Regrettably, these good intentions are often not followed through. Ultimately, residents simply find during the months of January, February, March that they in fact don't have anywhere to plant the trees and the roots with the roots they purchased, when they reflect on the likely size of the tree which might eventually grow. Would it be possible to incorporate these Christmas trees sold to residents with roots and pots and in the tree planting strategy? When the annual tree collection event is organised, could residents be asked if the Christmas tree has any significant root system? Could they be asked if their tree has any kind of plant pot with a root ball and soil attached? Could a separate collection for Christmas trees with roots be organised, or a separate vehicle dispatched at collection time, so these trees with roots and pots can be assessed in collection, and if they are deemed suitable, replanted in the grounds early in the new year? Can local farmers both inside and just outside the local authority be approached now to see if they would be interested in replanting on their land significant numbers of Darlington's discarded Christmas trees, which were sold to members of the public with roots? Could Raby Estate be approached? I can assure Cabinet members from my own perspective, Christmas trees which have a most promising appearance on a pottery cover well when planted in the ground. If there is still a significant amount of root attached, within a year, these trees can recover and have a wonderful healthy appearance and a fresh covering of new growth. Any urban resident would be most fortunate to be able to find a place to plant any tree which would grow to even semi-maturity in a residential area without inconveniencing others or causing damage to their own property or the property of others. I'll respond to that now, Chair, if you don't mind. We don't have a plan for replanting trees. We don't have a plan for taking Christmas trees and replanting them or sending them out. We normally the Christmas trees are collected by, I believe it's a Rotary group that do that with the help of the council, and trees are uplifted and taken away. Now I don't know what the Rotary Club do with them. I think that was that's part of their business. But what we intend to do, because the Rotary, because of COVID this year, I believe, are not going to provide that service. So we're looking at how we can maybe do something there. Possibly we're thinking about having a run and charge £5 to remove a tree. That's normally, I think, what the Rotary did last year. So we wouldn't be taking them to be planted or replanted. That we just don't have the facility to do that. So we would take them for mulching, and that would, but it would be at least a service. It would be something there as a gesture to try and accommodate that feature that the Rotary cannot supply this year. So in answer to Councillor Body, yes, we will be looking at a service to do that. That service will be a charitable service, the same as the donation to last year. But as far as trees with roots, potting trees, etc., and replanting them, no, we won't be looking at that.
Thank you, Councillor Keir. We'll ask Councillor Body in future if he's got a question for it to be a more succinct question. And can I just confirm, unfortunately, Rotary won't be able to collect Christmas trees this year because of COVID, but the Darlington Hospice are providing a collection service, so we may be able to link them in with whatever the local authority is trying to do.
Okay, thank you.
You've got another question from Michael and Angela Green?
I do. Below, I'll start now. Below is a copy of the email we have sent to Cabinet members and the Leader of the Council. If it is possible for a representation to be read made on the agenda item which covers Tree and Woodland Strategy 2021 to 2031, the information is listed below. I've spoken to Councillor Keir this evening about the strategy. And when we get into the body of his question, we would have welcomed a chance to speak again at Cabinet, but talking to Support Officer Lynn Wood, it seems that the COVID restrictions will continue to prevent the way representations are made at meetings in the near future. Cabinet meetings again on December 8, 2020 and then January 12, 2021 and February the 9th, 2021. Agenda item C, 7C. Has given an opportunity to illustrate the overlap between Parkland Heritage submissions and the DBC Tree and Woodland Strategy 2021-2031. We would wish to make representation on agenda item 7C in the form of a comment and questions for each elected member of Cabinet in the following areas. Agenda 7C Tree and Woodland Strategy, page 34. Health and well-being. Trees have a general positive impact on the health and well-being of individuals. This very much links in with the carbon impact and climate change. Trees have a positive impact on climate change, capturing carbon. That's a comment. Agenda 7C, page 43 of the report, proposed change to the draft strategy. Part B, trees and woodland. In the first year of the strategy to include an action to quantify canopy cover in the borough. Our comment on page 34 and page 43. One dramatic way to illustrate this phenomenon and impact is to analyse a full canopy of woodland and parkland and produce data in the following areas. Energy conserved, measured in kilowatts per annum, stormwater filtered, measured in litres per annum, air quality improved, increase in oxygen, measured in kilograms per annum, CO2 removed, measured in kilograms per annum, CO2 stored to date in trees. There is a process using Ecosystems app calling Treezilla, which can be used for both carbon capture and the quantifying of canopy cover. Such a process could quite easily be used with the community interest groups and, more importantly, the generation of children coming through schools. Both carbon capture impact and quantifying of the canopy cover of the borough would provide a very dramatic way of illustrating the positive impacts which trees, plants, grasses have on our environment and climate. Such a survey has been carried out on the historic parkland at Blackville with dramatic results and data. Brandfit are ecosystem services provided by Blackville Grange Parkland. Impact of possible development 2019. The final analysis of the 5 points listed above showed the Blackville Grange Parkland tree canopy mitigated an entire carbon footprint of 19 adults in monetary terms and providing savings to the community of 150,000 on an annual basis. Details of the survey can be found in pages 16 to 19, the Parkland Heritage Submission attached sent to members. And there is a link there as well. So in Item C, page 43, traps and parks and open spaces. We look to introduce fruit trees into parks and open spaces where appropriate. What level of community involvement would be envisaged? Question, what would this involve funding and help from central government? And the third question, would the planting of fruit trees follow a similar line to that of South Park Community Orchard and the national charity, the Orchard Project? Thank you for your interest, time and commitment. I think I'll generalise on that rather as go through it all, Chair, if that's okay. What I would like to do is take this and obviously speak with our environmental person to see the details of the numbers, etc., and how that ecosystem app works. I'm quite sure that that Margaret Ensign has a means of doing those calculations to see how they fit up. So on that part of it, I would take that away and we could look at that, and we'll ask Margaret to make comment. In respect to the open parks and open spaces, in respect to the fruit trees into the parks, yeah, we'd like to obviously get as many people from the community involved as possible, and I think the vision there is we're starting to look at areas for fruit trees to be planted there. We would involve people from the tree planting groups, etc. And I think the overall intent would be to bring in people from youth groups and schools, etc. if they're interested in there. So as a general viewpoint on that, yeah, that would be we would be looking to do that, bring in other areas, etc., other groups.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Snedker, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll try and make some brief comments on this, Councillor Kerr, and starting off with saying that yes, this tree policy is very similar to the previous one, and I see there was analysis of it versus neighbouring authorities' tree policies. However, when reviewing tree policies from around the country, I found some ones that were far more ambitious than this one. So, as you'd expect, I'll be requesting the council to be more ambitious. It does mention hedgerows, and hedgerows are not protected under the tree policy, and it does make reference to planning. However, in my experience, planning hasn't got a very good record of keeping hedgerows in place, and hedgerows have a specific and different habitat value from trees. So I would have liked to have seen hedgerows better protected in this policy. The change to planting heavy standard if a significant tree is removed after a planning application, while it's welcome, as far as establishing new trees, it's the number of trees that's going to make us really have an impact on the volume of trees in the town. So the suggestion in the consultation that the number of trees being replanted be related to the girth of the tree is one I would have liked us to adopt it and hope that we will look at again. The orchards project are being put on out as being a positive. They were actually in the old strategy. So the fact that we took them out and put them back in again, it's nice to see them retained, but it isn't as great a win as we thought it would. Another one about trees being taken out. There is a 5-year window where a tree can be taken out and developers have 5 years to plant a new one. That again is another ecological miss from us, because the birds and beasties have got to go and find somewhere new to live. And if we don't get the tree in the ground soon, that is a miss. got 2 left, don't worry. Street trees.
Councillor Sneddker, can everybody hear Councillor Sneddker? There is some interruption. Can you?
Yes.
Getting some nods.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Street trees. Street trees are mentioned in new developments where we're going to encourage developers to put them in. Again, I thought that was a shame, a big miss, because the Conservative National Government white paper said that they will mandate street trees in new development. So I thought we could have got ahead of the curve on that one. So again, that was a slight miss. And the final one, the arboricultural team are under huge pressure and they do incredible work. I've found them very responsive despite the huge amount of calls on their time. And I know that it's a reduced service after the austerity we've had as a council for many years. However, I see that in the policy, there are a series of benchmarks and requirements of the arboricultural team, and almost all of the targets dates for completion are ongoing. I just wanted to know, are we satisfied that the officers have the resources to complete all of these benchmarks in the tree policy, and are they completed each and every year? Thank you.
I've got Councillor Harker. Do you want his question as well, Councillor Keir, and then you can answer them both together, or would you prefer to answer that one first?
I'll prefer to answer Councillor Sneddker.
Okay.
Hedgerows, Councillor Sneddker, yep, planning areas, whilst they're not strong, I think the latest moves around in the planning around ensuring that there is no ecological minus. It's got to be a plus, would help the legislation that already exists for hedgerows. So I think we're covered there rather than having something specific that's in the tree and woodland strategy. So that planning, that planning commitment of no being detrimental in ecological sense, it's got to be a positive, plus the legislation that's already there should provide a balanced view on hedgerows. And of course developments are developments, and we have to ensure that as we go through the planning that we take cognizance of any hedgerows that are in there. Regarding street trees, well, I think street trees, I think some areas don't, I think there are some authorities that don't plant street trees, for example. I think it's good from the arborists in Darlington that we have a history of planting street trees, and I think that should remain. And I think planting the right trees at the right place is key to that. And I wouldn't say it's a big miss. I think it's in there. It's going to be. And I think the fact that we have a very enthusiastic arboreal team, wherever we can plant street trees, hopefully that would would push through. So I don't see it as big a message as you see it, to be quite frank on it. I think it's in there. We do look at new developments, and of course when we look through that, then trees are protected from being chopped down, and obviously if there are any trees have to be removed, we'll be asking for other trees to be put in there. So I think in balance that's pretty fair. On the arboreal team, I think that's an operational issue. You'd have to ask the operational folks, and if that came to me, then obviously we would have a look at that. But I think as it is just now, I think that pressure hasn't been. I'm not hearing any of those pressures around the workloads or anything like that. I do accept that there is a huge amount of trees. I think ambition-wise as well, if we have a target of 10,000 that we don't want to talk about now, really, we should have an ambition to double the amount of trees and get more trees in there, and work with all of the tree groups to try and pull them together so that we've got advanced plans where we go. Then that 10,000 becomes a moot point in respect to where we're going to go with this. My ambition would be, obviously to get as many trees in the ground as possible going forward, and to that extent, that's one of the proposals that we're looking at just now, about having myself and a group together to try and make that happen and try and get ahead of the curve in respect to planning, getting the bids in, because most of this is funded work, as you know. So it's getting those bids in, make sure we get the bids, and then rustling up the volunteers essentially to get the trees planted. So I'm hoping that you see that in a positive light. That's what it's designed to do, and I'm hoping that, you know, the this 10,000 that everybody keeps talking about just goes away. It's you know, if we pass that signpost fairly quickly, I would hope.
Thank you, Councillor Harker.
Thank you, Chair. 2 points. Firstly, I'm pleased to see that you've taken on board Labour's election manifesto promise to plant at least 10,000 trees into your strategy. Secondly,
I didn't read that, Councillor Harker.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. The second question is, I'm puzzled about the decision with regards to hedgerows. A number of people seemingly asked why it's not, or why they're not included in the strategy. And the answer given in the report today is that they're covered by planning process. Whilst that is true, much could be said the same of trees. Much about planning has details about what we do with regards trees. It is a strategy document. It doesn't include all the detail, and I would have thought it would be easier in terms of the public to read and understand to include something in the strategy document, even if it's merely to point at how issues are determined through the planning process. I suspect also in what is dealt with through the planning process, it's very particular about certain instances and certain things happening, whereas a strategy might talk about a desire to increase the number of hedgerows we have, to improve the quality of hedgerows we have, for example, which won't be included in planning process, because that's purely going to be about, if someone puts in a planning application, then we will do things to look after hedgerows affected by that, rather than a more general point about improving hedgerows in the borough as a whole. And therefore, I do think it's remiss not to have included it in the strategy.
Okay, I take your point, Councillor Harker. I think on balance, it's a very balanced strategy as it goes through. I think the trees and woodland, I think as I explained to Councillor Snedker, I think hedges are protected, and I would wager that as we go through our hopefully our planning processes going forward with the tree groups, etc., and if they bring forward plans to put in hedgerows, for example, I wouldn't see that being a problem as part of that overall planning. So I would say that the protection of the hedges from developers is there through the bio requirement of positive bio, plus the legislation that already exists. And if any of the tree groups do come forward and say we want to plant hedgerows as opposed to planting 50 trees or 100 trees or a couple of hundred trees, I certainly wouldn't be against that. And I don't think any of the officers or any of the arborists or any of the council the people working with the council would be against that. So to me, it's a relatively moot point, in as much as we haven't specifically said we're going to put a target in for hedgerows, but I think hedges are protected. And as I say, if any of those volunteer groups come in and say, for example, we want to put a hedgerow in X park or X field, if the friends of somebody came and said we want to put a hedgerow up the side of this, that would be considered. Being quite frank about it, if it was one of those groups and it was the land was amenable, I wouldn't see any reason to object to that. So I don't think it's as negative as you're making out. I think it's something that's been picked on here by various groups and various people for various reasons. I personally think it's I think the hedgerows are pretty well protected, and if any volunteer group did come in to plant hedgerows, I wouldn't see any objection to that, provided it's appropriate and the council, arborists, etc., would agree with it. Then I wouldn't see any objection to that, I don't think.
Thank you, Councillor Keir. And just before I ask for people to vote, can I just comment? You may remember that we did undertake to plant trees in memory of those people who lost their lives during COVID. Obviously, because the numbers, we never know where they are. What we are planning to do, and the councillors within the areas will be consulted, in various parks in the town, we're proposing to plant a group of mature trees. And obviously we're looking at the parks, the established parks, and the ward councillors will be consulted about that. So that's something else that we're obviously doing as a group. The arborists are looking at the trees that would be applicable. What I've asked them to do is to try to get trees, some which will flower in the spring, some that are obviously, summer is a lot more difficult, but then some of those that will be green all the year round. So that's something else that we're working on as well. But as I say, the ward councillors in the area will be consulted when we've identified the parks. Can I ask for people to vote in favour of Councillor Keir's proposals? Cabinet members? Thank you very much indeed. Item 7D, the housing revenue account. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair. I would ask Cabinet to receive the report on the housing revenue account in relation to the medium-term financial plan 2021-20 and 2024-25. The purpose of this report is to consider proposals for the revenue budget, rent levels and service charges for the Council's housing revenue account for the financial year 2021 in the context of the HRA's medium-term financial plan 24-25 and the 30-year investment plan. That's a bit of a tongue tie. I would ask members to receive the recommendations outlined in paragraph 4 from A to F, and I would recommend that Cabinet approves these for the reasons set out in paragraph 5. And I'm happy to take questions, Chair.
Can we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Any questions to Councillor Nicholson? I can't see any hands up. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 7E, the medium-term financial plan, and this is my report. In introducing the report, can I just make some comments? Obviously, 2020-2021 has resulted in significant financial challenges because of COVID-19. Despite this, we are pleased to present a balanced medium-term financial plan, which puts Darlington into a stronger position than many other authorities. However, we face a number of pressures after COVID-19, and while spending review indicates further government support, social care remains a major issue. We are continuing to invest in services, street scene services, which is obviously a priority for, I think, most of our residents, for the town centre, and obviously we've got extra funding for the town plan and the High Street Fund, hopefully. Community safety, which is another major issue for residents of the town, neighbourhood renewal and culture. Economic growth is a key priority for delivering success for Darlington, and that was the major, it outlined in our council plan. We do propose a council tax increase of 1.99. In addition, the 3% social care precept in line with government approach to funding for increasing the cost of social care. And I think we're all aware of the pressure that we do have on social care. I would like to move the report as detailed in para 7 for the reasons given in paragraph 8. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Heather.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any questions in the report? Councillor Curry, I think you've got your hand up.
Yes, I was looking at the reserves, and in the long-term effect, are we getting close to the minimum that we're allowed to legally have by 2024?
Thank you. I'll get Elizabeth will answer that question, Councillor Curry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Curry, reserves are going down. We're utilising reserves over the 4 years, but you will see that there is a risk reserve of over £5 million there. And in my judgment, that's enough to cover us for what we need.
Thank you. Any other questions? I can't see anybody else's hand up, so can we agree? Cabinet members, can we agree?
Yes.
Thank you. If we move on to item 8, the outcome of complaints made to the Ombudsman. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. This is a brief report on the complaints dealt with by the Ombudsman during the period 1st of April to 30th of September 2020. The Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman completed his work on 4 complaints during this period. The Ombudsman made 1 finding of maladministration causing injustice, and this was a car that was removed by wrongly removed by the council because the council considered it abandoned and it was towed away, and in fact it had not been. This was addressed with the complainant, and the car removal fees were refunded and satisfactory payment made to the complainant. The Ombudsman upheld another complaint which was without investigation. There was an injustice on invoicing from the Town Hall. However, the Ombudsman was satisfied that the Council had remedied the injustice. 2 complaints were closed by the Ombudsman, not requiring further action. So I move the report as paragraph 3 for reasons given in paragraph 4. Thank you, Chair.
Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. Are there any questions to Councillor Johnson? Councillor Harker.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question about this report in terms of something that I think is missing from it and was possibly missing from the previous report. The local authority received a letter from the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman in July, and there were 2 aspects of that letter that I wanted to ask about or make a comment on. One was that, I'm just finding the figures, that 86% of complaints that were investigated by the Ombudsman for this local authority were upheld, and that compares to the national average of 56% of similar local authorities, i.e. the number of decisions, the complaints that they were holding was far higher for here than for other similar authorities. And the second point that letter made, which is possibly more disconcerting, is, and I'll read the sentence out, it said, "While I welcome that the Council agreed to and implemented the recommendations made during the year, it is disappointing that in 3 cases remedies were not completed within the agreed timescales." And I think the point I'd make is that we had a similar conversation at Council. Everybody makes mistakes, including local authorities. And I think what's particularly important when you do make a mistake is that it's remedied as quickly as possible and that the issue is resolved swiftly. And therefore, I would agree with the Ombudsman letter that it is disappointing that where we have been found at fault, that we haven't remedied these within the timescales that have been agreed, because that's clearly just going to exacerbate the issue that was there in the first place. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Johnson. Oh, Councillor Mills, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, Chair, if I may just interject with it being social care. My point is that 56% of one authority is very different to 56% of another authority, depending on the size of each borough or local authority that's mentioned. So I would suggest that we go back and find the actual numbers for the comparison, and then we can come back to Councillor Harker with more detail on that, Chair.
To be clear, it did say similar authorities.
Yeah, I still think we should come back with actual numbers, and then we can satisfy your question more precisely.
Thank you, Councillor Mills. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Scott. Just on the housing complaints process, I've asked officers to look at our whole complaints and feedback strategy, because I think what's really important is to recognise that, we have over, just short of over 5,500 council tenants, and a lot of those tenants have, you know, really good service, and we don't always have the best facility to be able to capture that feedback when residents have had, you know, a good replacement window scheme or a good, you know, repainting of a fence. So I understand that this is an ombudsman report where sometimes at the very end of that feedback and complaints process where it's gone wrong. But I think what I want to do, just to reassure Cabinet, is I want to get some detail from the very beginning of that customer journey, and I think that will help balance out some of the, you know, the negatives that have gone on with some of the real positive stories and the successes across housing.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Johnson, do you?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I thank Councillor Nicholson for progressing his responsibility in such a quick way. Well done for that. Councillor Mills, thank you for supporting the question about percentages. And Councillor Harker, you have refreshed me in respect of that letter, so I will be talking to the officers and get you some sort of written reply. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we agree Councillor Johnson's report? I can't see any hands up to say they don't agree. Thank you. Item 9, mid-year prudential indicators. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, one of the really exciting reports we have. This is one of 3 statutory annual reports required for prudential indicators. This being the mid-year update, and I'm pleased to report all the indicators are within their approved limits. Overall capital expenditure is lower than budget, primarily in relation to slowing down of house building programmes through the COVID period, and this in turn has reduced the Council's borrowing need. The Treasury management budget has reduced by 110,000. This is due to lower interest rates on debt and the utilisation of short-term money, this reduction being reflected in the revenue budget management position. So I move the recommendations in paragraph 7 for the reasons given in paragraph 8. Thank you, Chair.
We've got seconded that. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any questions to Councillor Johnson? No, I can't see any hands up. So is that agreed? Thank you. Item 10, the Darlington Town Fund. This is Councillor Marshall.
Thanks, Chair. This report is to update Cabinet on the allocation of the £1 million forward funding from the Towns Fund and the £22.3 million secured through the Towns deal. The report sets out the proposed strategic interventions to drive economic regeneration through urban regeneration, skills and enterprise, infrastructure and connectivity. Business cases for specific projects within these overarching themes are being developed and presented to Cabinet as they are finalised. I move the recommendations shown in paragraph 6 for the reasons given in paragraph 7.
We've got a seconder.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Mills. Are there any questions to Councillor Marshall on the Towns Fund? Can I just comment and say just before this meeting, we've just had another meeting of the Town Board and everything is progressing very well. It's good news, this, for the town. So thank you very much indeed.
Councillor Scott, sorry, Councillor Snedker's got his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Snedker, I didn't see.
That's
You're on the bottom of my screen.
My place, I know my place. Thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Marshall, just an observation. The reasons given 7A(1), increasing density in town centres. As you know, it's a subject that I'm very interested in, town centre living, etc. But it does come with a word of caution and a caveat about what presumed development rights of retail premises into residential premises. As far as I'm aware, and I'm quite happy to be put right, we currently don't have any planning rules that allow us to control how these premises are turned into residential dwellings. And there's already some alarms being raised towards the south of the country, where there's more pressure on housing, that developments of unsuitable, the phrase rabbit hutches has been used, I'm afraid. But what I'd like to know is, while we welcome increased residential dwellings in the town centre, do you feel you have the actual tools and regulations in place to ensure that decent homes are what we generate in the town centre for everyone's benefit? Thank you.
Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Councillor Snedker. I can't answer specifically about the planning rules reconverting retail units to housing, other than the ones I know about, which is the change of use, but I'm not sure whether that applies. With regards to development of the housing, I can assure you that we will be building quality housing to the right codes right the way through the strategic development programme. And you will get a chance to comment on those as they come to fruition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any more questions to Councillor Marshall? If not, can we agree? Item 11, schedule of transactions, and there is a confidential paper attached to this. If anybody wants to comment on the confidential part, we would have to move into part 3. Does anybody have a question for a part 3 item? No, in that case, we will take them both together. Councillor Johnson. You're on mute, Charles.
Yes. In the table, items 1, 2 and 3 were properties in private ownership which were acquired without compulsory purchase and without acceptable negotiations. The acquisition was to support the Next Steps project, which is to bring in unused houses back into use. Item 4 is the purchase of land near the £5 note bridge, and this continues to support our rail heritage scheme. I move the report in paragraph 3 for the reasons given in paragraph 4. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Have we got a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mills. Are there any questions to Councillor Johnson? No. Can we agree? Thank you. Item 12, membership changes. Are there any membership changes? No, can't see any. Item 13, supplementary items. There are no supplementary items. Item 14, questions. Have we got any questions? I can't see anybody with any hands up. So thank you very much indeed for your attendance, everybody. Obviously, I will see some of you, but not necessarily all of you. But if I don't, I just wish you compliments of